Hey guys, it's Rashauna Scott. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Flippin and Heels Virtual Summit for Women Investors in Real Estate. This is our second annual. Last year, I featured women who were killing it as realtors from all across the country. And this year, I decided to focus on women who are really changing the narrative, pretty much killing it in their respective industries. I mean, I have wholesalers, redevelopers, I have landlords, I have general contractors. I mean, the amount of expertise that these women are going to share with you throughout this summit is really invaluable. And today I have an amazing special guest coming all the way from the West Coast, Miss Helena Jones-Kim. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it was wonderful. It's a little rainy out here today. Still beautiful in California.
I thought it never rained in California.
Even when it does, it's still all good. We can still wear open toe. We still can wear open toe shoes in the rain out here. So
don't rub it in, and don't rub it in. It's like 30 today in Chicago.
I'm sorry.
but yeah. So we are going to jump right in. I'm so excited that you are going to share with us your experience and your expertise. Tuning in from San Francisco, Bay Area, and California. So tell us a little about yourself.
Well, like you mentioned, my name is Helena Jones-Kim, and I have been in the real estate industry for probably about 20 years. I started off in lending back in 2000, and then I became a real estate broker a little bit after that. And it seems as though I have worked my way into the various avenues in real estate.
Okay. So the other avenues, you are doing some redevelopment out there. Tell us about that.
Yes. I got into redevelopment in 2008 when the market crashed. I will never forget, I was pregnant with my son and I was going for a run in Hercules, California. It's a little bedroom town, maybe about 30 minutes, 40 minutes from Oakland. And I saw a blighted home, a condo all boarded up. And I just looked at it and said, I want to buy that. And sure enough, I called on it and it was, vacant, bank owned it. I raised the capital, purchased it, and that was my very first investment. So from then, that's been my world.
Okay. And how did you raise the capital?
I had several other women investors that were into financial management, financial services, and they helped me set up my portfolio in regards to financial planning, and they had extra cash to invest. And when I brought them the opportunity, they were excited and they supported me and they invested.
Awesome. I love it. So you was raising private money from the jump on your very first deal.
Yes.
Was there any, I'm sure there was there any fear, right? Like, oh my goodness, this is my first deal. What if this doesn't work out? I owe these people, what was that like?
Well, I believed in the property that I purchased, and I knew the area because it's an area that I grew up in. So I was comfortable in knowing that the price I was getting, I would be covered. I mean, it would have taken a lot for it to fall any further, really, than where it was, because it was 2008 and things were, they were going downhill and the prices were a lot lower than they are now. So acquisition price, it was a very good acquisition price, and that created security inside of me to move forward with the purchase.
Great. Okay. And then did you already have your team of contractors in place, or how was that?
I didn't at the time, but this was a condo. And so fortunately for a condo, it's usually cosmetic. And in my mind, I figured, I can gather up contractors. Let me go into the community and, tap into my network, especially at that time, and see who I can get to come out and, support me in getting this property turned around. And so I was able to do that, especially at that time, because a lot of people were out of work. So it was an opportunity for me to get really qualified contractors and qualified handymen to come out and to support me in my endeavors on the rehab piece.
That's awesome. So your first deal, went how people's deals go, like deal 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You came out the gate with securing funding for the deal, and then also you had an opportunity to work with really great contractors. I mean, how lucky were you? And from there, I'm sure you were like, oh, okay, well, that gave you the confidence to go and do more.
Yeah, yes, it did. There were a lot of moving parts to that. So I was very happy to see how it turned out. And it encouraged me. Yeah, I was motivated from that transaction, and my investors were motivated too, because they got paid well, and they got paid.
I know that's right.
Quickly, and they were paid quickly, so they were happy about that.
Okay, so everybody's happy. So did that transition into your next deal? Like, did your investors come along with you on the next deal? Did your contractors come along with you? At what point did you start hitting some bumps in the road and figuring out, okay, this isn't working, let me switch this up, or, tell us about that.
I think the most difficult part for me in the journey, especially when I first started, is I'm also a broker. So there was a fine line between rehabbing the properties and getting them really nice to put on the market, and then making the decision whether I wanted to list them myself or to work with another real estate professional. And of course, if you work with another real estate professional, you pay a commission, and that affects your bottom line number. However, for me, it allowed for me, when I made the decision to go ahead and have, give the love to another agent. And in return, they, because of how turnkey the property was, and me being another real estate professional, of course, I was able to receive a discounted rate, but it allowed for me to free myself up once the property was ready to go, and really put it in the hands of a professional realtor to do their part in selling it, so that there was kind of a liaison between me and the property. And once I had that realtor on my team, then I picked up another property ASAP, because I could move forward while that one was in the process of being listed and sold.
Right. That's awesome. If you were to go back and do it again, would you have, just listed it yourself and save that extra, however, 3, 4, 5, 6%?
Well, you're always going to pay the buyer side, right? So regardless, I'm going to pay commission there. Again, I was able to get a discounted rate from the agent. So that was helpful, because, the agent, she knew that I was going to give her multiple deals. So it definitely was
relationship.
It was a relationship. I mean, it was a totally fair number she was totally good with it, and she was able to market herself at the property. So that worked out. I wouldn't change that. And even now today, it's 90% of my properties are listed with another agent. Because when you put your love and your heart and your soul into a property, and you've done everything to make it beautiful, if someone comes in and they don't like it, or they're asking questions, I don't want to be too, I want to be fair. I want to be fair to the buyer and not judgmental on my side, thinking that, oh, okay, I covered myself really well. Well, sometimes we do the best that we can as investors and as redevelopers to do things the right way, but it's always not nice to have your professionals working with you to make sure you dotted your I's and crossed your T's. For me, that works best. That works best for me, and it keeps me out of trouble. So, and a lot of times, and a lot of times my agents, they know their market, so they still do very well and give me the number that I expect. So the realtor and realtist partnerships are very fundamental here.
That's great. That's definitely a great key, because most realtors who do redevelop properties do not do that. They do it all in one. But I think it's great because obviously, like you said, it allowed someone else the opportunity to market themselves behind your property, and really represent you, from that standpoint. I think it's also funny that you say, you put your heart and sweat and tears into a renovation, and then it's and you think it's perfect, right? But for the end buyer, it may not be. And so it's funny because maybe even as women, we have to even keep our emotions out of it. Like, I know if I put my heart, sweat, and tears into a property and somebody comes through and they calling this out, I'm probably going to have a problem with that.
Oh.
So I think it's smart that you definitely have done it that way.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I must admit that my realtors have taken care of me. There have been times when they have brought me great deals to purchase and to invest.
Yeah.
So it genuinely is. I really work hard at developing relationships where there's reciprocity and respect and mutual. We have mutual intentions to work together to get the property sold and to support one another.
Absolutely. Yeah. I say it all the time that real estate is a relationship business. So yeah, that's definitely a great key. So moving right along. So speaking on redeveloping communities in certain areas, tell us about the communities that you're in for those who are not familiar with the area, and why did you choose to invest in those communities?
Oh, well, I'm from Richmond, California. Hey, about 20 minutes from outside of Oakland, and I know the area. I mean, it's my city, and I know it inside and out. And so it is very urban city like Oakland, and it can be block to block, and so for me, the ability to be able to purchase in my city, instead of watching it go, be blighted up, the home be blighted up or be blighted or boarded up, the ability for me to be able to purchase and to rehab the home and offer it to a family and to see the other values in the area go up, all in my own city that I was born and raised in, that to me is a feeling I get that it just brings chills all through my body. It makes me love what I do. So, and after Richmond, it became the cities surrounding Richmond because I'm from the Bay. So I love the Bay. I love Oakland. I love Richmond. I love Vallejo, Hercules, San Pablo. I've remodeled in all of the cities that I love. And that has really been my intention in my rehab business, is to focus on the areas that I know and I love.
Love it, love it. So how many properties would you say you've redeveloped in your career? I don't know if you know the number.
I would say at this point at over 30.
Okay. Over 30. And let's just dive a little deeper and talk about some of the challenges, right? Because now you're an expert. I definitely would consider you an expert from things that you have going on, but I'm sure there have been a lot of lessons along the way.
Yes, there have been. I'm sorry, did you say what are some of the main things I've learned?
Some of the challenges. Mm-hmm.
Well, some of the challenges, of course, are making sure that when you're passionate about a city or you're passionate about a home, it still needs to pencil out. So it is very important that you look at the transaction from start to finish and that you allow yourself a cushion, a 25% cushion for things that come up. And that piece is really important because things will come up and you don't want to be so tight. I don't want to be so tight on my numbers where now I'm stressing, and that changes the whole dynamic of the transaction. So very important that you take a look, and a lot of it is speculative. Some of it is like, well, these are the last solds, but I'm going to do this and fix it up and make it look beautiful, and what I'm going to add will bring a little bit more value to the last home sold. So I anticipate receiving maybe $10,000 or $15,000 more than current market value. However, there's also the reality around that not happening, and you need to be prepared for that when you initially look at that transaction for purchase, for acquisition. Okay, what do I need to put into it? How much work do I needs to be done to it? And then you want to make sure you add in additional costs to that, because things come up when you rehab. Even when you think they don't, they do. Sometimes you get a property and you think it's going to be a lot of work, and it goes extremely well, and you make 25% more than what you thought. But now at this stage in the game, every single property I am looking at and penciling out with the fine-tooth comb and adding in additional costs. When I first started, I didn't add in that cushion, and that cost me on a couple deals.
That's good. That's good to hear you say that. You have what I guess you can call it a contingency budget, right? And so is there a certain percentage of the rehab that you do for that number? Like, let's say, is it an extra 10% or how do you do that?
Well, for me, it's about 20%. For my new investors coming in, I would encourage 25%.
Wow. And so we're talking about 20 to 25% of the current rehab budget. Correct?
Oh, yes. That's correct.
Okay, so let's say it's $100,000 rehab. Then they feel solid on it being $100,000 rehab. You're saying that they really need to budget 120 or 125?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So since we're talking about numbers, people always say how expensive it is to buy property in California, just how expensive the real estate is, period. Is it like that in your area? Tell us about, I guess, maybe like the average price points in your area. And then have you ran into any trouble with financing? Probably not, because at the gate, your first deal was privately funded. But just tell us about that, and the entry, the level of entry, right? Because I can imagine if the price points are very expensive, then there may not be a lot of people out there, redeveloping properties. So tell us about that.
Well, that's a two-part question. The first part is, yes, it is expensive to buy in California in comparison to other states, for sure. However, there is always a place out here that you can buy that is further out, that's less expensive. And when I first purchased, my first purchase was in Hercules. At the time, that condo in 2008, I want to say was probably about $175. That same condo today is $375. So the market has changed in that particular area. However, there are other areas that are hot right now. You have Sacramento, Vallejo, one of the hottest growing cities in the nation right now. We have Brentwood, Antioch, Rio Vista. There are places that are a lot cheaper than Oakland, San Pablo, Richmond, Hercules, where you can purchase. Now, just 5 years ago, you could still buy, in Oakland, in West Oakland, and now the prices have shot up. Same for Richmond, same for El Cerrito. The surrounding communities, the quicker you can get to San Francisco, the more expensive it is. However, there are still a lot of opportunities. You just have to go outside of your zone. And when I first started in 2008, Hercules was still outside of the zone. It wasn't like, one of the hottest, most expensive places. I bought in a place that was less expensive in my price range that I felt comfortable with. And then I was able to execute. But the second part to that is, I believe in purchasing and home ownership. So really my first investment came from my first property as an owner occupied property, and I think that still is a very fair way to enter into investing in the marketplace, is to purchase your own home. If you feel like investing is aggressive or it's too expensive, or you may not want to go further out, your first investment could be your own home that you have really great financing options on. It's a little more difficult, as we know, to get investment funds, good funds and good financing on investments. So that's private funds and it's more expensive. So, however, if you purchase your first home and you let the equity build 2 or 3 years, you can decide to take an equity line out and now buy you another place. And now this place can be an investment that you can fix up. So I would encourage all, all listeners to buy, because that's how you get in. You purchase your first piece the best way you know how. And if it's not as an investment, then it should be as a primary residence, and then let that work for you for your investment piece.
That is so good. That's such a great point. And the realtor inside of me, and I'm sure the realtor inside of you, that's where, that's so important. Right. And then even in Chicago and certain areas, we have this house hacking that is the new buzz. I literally have 5 clients right now that are looking for multi-unit properties that they can purchase FHA, 3.5% down, including, down payment assistance programs. So they can live in one unit and rent the, other 1, 2, or 3 out. Right. And so you're absolutely right in regards to, if you are not that aggressive, as far as investing, then purchasing your own home, is still an investment as well. You mentioned, building up the equity. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, just for people who aren't familiar with the term equity or, home equity line of credit?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll give an example. I bought my very first home in 2000 in Glen Cove, Vallejo. And Glen Cove, Vallejo at the time, and I worked in Pleasanton. However, I couldn't afford in Pleasanton. And, I had to buy on the outskirts, like I'm encouraging folks to do now. And I sat there for a few years. And as I did that, the equity, the value of the property just increased. So I went on about, getting my broker's license, establishing myself in the mortgage world. And little did I know that the house I was living in was continuing every day to make money for me. That part right there is very important. And everyone's sacrifice is different. I'm very proud to say that I lived at home with my parents until I was able to buy a house on my own. That was my goal. Finish college. Don't leave here. Don't leave this house in Richmond until I can buy. And, there were 8 or 9 of us in a 2-1, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. But my goal was to purchase. And although I couldn't purchase in Pleasanton and other places, I purchased where I could afford, and that purchase worked out for me every day until the day I sold it. And I wish I wouldn't have sold it.
Wow, man.
Sold it. So I don't want to go into that, because I'll start crying. But it's okay. Oh. It's okay. No, they worked out well. It really did.
It is okay. Oh, an amazing, wonderful homeowner is loving it, and as well as all the other properties that you've developed. So speaking of homeowners, the other side to what you do as a real estate agent, share with us that world, because I see you, going in and out of communities, buying properties, managing contractors, doing redevelopments, and then you have the other side where you're actually representing buyers and sellers. How much of your business, I guess if you can give us a percentage, is that a very active business, or are you more on the redevelopment side?
Wow. Well, the two go hand in hand. Interestingly enough, I just went into real estate full time last year and doing sales, because for a long time, I was in lending, mortgage lending, and I was rehabbing. And at that point, I would have my agents that on my team, my realtors and realtists that work with me, I would have them selling my properties. So therefore, that kind of, eliminated me from the sales side of real estate. I wanted to change. I started really looking at mortgage and saying, I've been doing this for a long time. It's not as fun, but I know it, and I know it well. And I know rehabbing and redeveloping well. So I had an opportunity for someone, a previous mentor of mine, who said, you know what, I'd like for you to sell my house. And it was a great opportunity. It was actually my very first sale in Oakland Hills, and it was $1 million listing. And
Wow.
I'll take care of her. But the reason how I knew it was for me, and that God called me to do it, is because the house was beautiful, but it needed to be touched up. I always say it's like it's like a beautiful model, But then when you put on all the clothes and all the glam, then you're camera ready. You walk away ready. Well, this house was the same, and it just needed to be beautified, and she needed those services. And I was so happy that I was able to offer that, to do it comfortably, to enjoy doing it, and then be able to sell it for her at top dollar. And she's a very busy professional. So it's nice to be able to offer the service of working with contractors, working with the city, getting permits, and elevating my game as a broker associate, right? That to me let me know that I had chosen the right field in going into real estate full time and having it coincide now with my redevelopment business.
Right. Wow. And you're like, man, I can do this. I mean, your first sale, $1 million sale, that is really great. And I'm sure it gave you the confidence to just continue on and to do more. So that's awesome. You mentioned, working with contractors and pulling permits and having that experience. Have you ever thought about getting your GC license and doing that on a larger scale?
It's funny because I am a woman-owned certified business, and for a long time it was very hard to figure out which direction to go in as real estate professional services versus general contractors as it pertains to women-owned businesses and contracts. So I really looked into getting my general contractor's license so that I could have more options at RFPs and contracts. And then I had a chance to sit down and have a conversation with a woman contractor. And I just knew it wasn't the space for me, that I didn't want to play in that zone. I respect it, and it's phenomenal. There's a lot of moving parts to that. But, because I'm not a general contractor, it actually, again, it's less liability for me. And that's important to me. It is very important that I make sure that I have other people in place to do what they do best. And so now I have great general contractors that work with me to, do what I do in terms of the redevelopment piece. But I really think it's an awesome, it's definitely an awesome profession. And I surely thought about it. Also our times are limited. I have a son, I have a husband, I have 3 boys, and, sometimes you have to say, I'm going to zone in here. It's my specialty. It's what I do. And you just go for it. And I think for me, my zone is definitely on the redevelopment side and working with general contractors and other professionals to support, what I'm good at, what I do best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I mean, 3 great points from what you just said. One is, sit down, speak with someone, whether that's a mentor or what have you, somebody who's experienced in the field, that you're thinking of going into. 2, relationships, right? So the relationships that you built with your general contractors, ensure that, 1, they do good work and they push out a quality product for you. 3, really getting in tune with yourself, what you're good at, and what you really want to do, because a lot of times, especially in this business, it's easy to be all over the place. It's easy for me when I first got into real estate and first started learning about investments. I mean, I was at a workshop or a seminar, every other month, and every other month there's a different strategy. And it's like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do wholesales. I want to do auctions. I want to do probates. I want to do short sales. There's so many different options, but I love that you're like, you know what? This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I've done well in. I've had success in it. So why take on something extra when you're like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, and that did come with time. That really came with time. Because for a long time I wanted to do different things, because you don't know that you don't want to do it until you look into it. And so sometimes we will look into things that excite us, and then we just, it becomes very clear. And you have to go through that process. So I think it's taken me a while to get here, but my advice to others would be get there sooner than I did. And by that, I mean, if you start to make money and you're happy, or you're happy and you're making money in your zone, stay in that zone as much as you can. Because that's a good place. It's a good place to be in. And I'm not saying don't look at other opportunities. I'm just saying look at them quickly and then come back to your lane. Come back to your lane and your center.
Girl, you better preach. You better preach, girl. No, but that's good, and that's definitely true. So I want to segue just a little bit. So being a woman redeveloper in this very male-dominated industry, what are some of the challenges that you face? What are some of the things you've had to deal with, go through, grow through, right? What are some things that you can share with us about that?
I think the biggest challenge is making sure that your team respects your vision, and that you're working with a team that knows what your specific goals are, and they're on board to help you achieve those goals. It's everything. It's everything for me as a business owner, is to make sure that I know I have people on my team that are working for me and not against me. And unfortunately, in this business and just in life, you are going to have that time when you realize that contractor has been taken from you, and you weren't managing your books well enough, and now you see it. Because when you're a business owner, you need to delegate. So delegating shouldn't be a bad thing. You should be able to delegate and make sure, again, that they're working for the same common goal and it's getting done. And occasionally it won't go that way. And that becomes difficult, because then you have to have the conversation, or it's not the conversation, it's just how it feels to know that you have been working with someone, trusting someone, and they don't have your best interests at heart. And so now you have to shift. And the shift is difficult, because sometimes the person you thought, even if you look at them and say, oh, they're just okay. Well, they're better than not having anyone. And good contractors can be hard to find. So now you have to go and you kind of have to re-up your team. So that was challenging for me, because I had a crew that I worked with for quite some time. And, as we went on, the numbers were not looking the way that I needed them to look. And some of the projects I would need to go over and over again and ask for the same items to be fixed. And I started realizing that, yes, I'm interacting with a lot of men, and I work with phenomenal men. And then there are some men that they just don't want to be told, they don't want me to tell them what to do. No matter how nice I ask, they don't want it, and they'll be defiant. And sometimes you don't even realize this happening until you go back to the job and you've been there 4 times now and it's still not done. And you're like, wow, okay. And then I'll go and get a male partner to come and ask for the same thing. And then it gets done. That part right there is pretty, yeah, it's pretty,
Wow.
yeah, it's disheartening. And it
Wow.
happens a lot. It happens a lot in this business. The quotes that I receive as a woman, and then the quotes that I have received from my business partners that are male from the exact same companies, $500, $800, $1,000 more for me. That part is where you say, okay, that part is not easy. And I think as women, we like to please and we like to get along and keep the peace. And when you're in construction and you need to get things done and you're on the clock and interest is going up every day, sometimes you can't be nice like that. You have to come in and you have to smash. And for me, smashing is not yelling, it's not cussing. It's just saying, hey, I need this done. And I asked you to do it. I'm not quite sure why it's not done yet. And, some contractors take that well and some don't. And so, when it's time for a change, then I make the change that's necessary in order to survive and keep going.
I know that's right. Let's say that part, okay? I'm over here taking notes, girl. I definitely am. So, in regards to just all of the wonderful things that you shared with us, as far as your experience, your background, your ups, your downs, what's next for you in your business endeavors?
Well, I have really been asked to do quite a bit of community work in terms of educating buyers on, investing, similar to what you're doing now for your audience. And I love that. And a lot of that is my free time, but I do it. I mean, I am, third vice president of Women's Council of NARAB. NARAB is one of the largest, oldest Black broker organizations around. And we do a lot in the community to try and, support home ownership. Unfortunately, right now, Black home ownership is at an all-time low. And so, my passion right now is going into the community and educating everyone, but specifically within our community, the importance of buying. When folks ask me that question, tell me how to get into investing. The truth is, buy your first piece. Don't rent. Owner occupy, and the rest will fall into play. So for me to get that message out there, and especially within my communities, also I am second vice president for the San Francisco African American Chamber of Commerce. And again, the housing crisis in the city, 3% Black home ownership in San Francisco. So what's next for me is to really get into those communities to see what opportunities are there for housing and really get into redeveloping and offering properties to low to income buyers, to veterans, and just making opportunities in this area where pricing and and financing are hard to obtain, specifically for low to moderate income buyers and within our communities. So I think that's where I'm at, and I'm happy that as a seller, as an investor, I have the ability to take into consideration all offers, not just cash offers. I take into consideration an FHA offer. I'm going to take into consideration a VA offer. I want to hear your story. That part makes me happy when it comes to investing and having the opportunity to redevelop areas and invest in communities where opportunities can be created.
Yeah, I love it, because you being a pillar for the community, you being a leader in the community means just that, right? You being a decision maker. And like you said, you don't have to take a cash offer. You can allow someone who is a first-time home buyer or second or third-time home buyer, whatever the case, to come in and buy, a property for. And it could be their first time, they're going from renting. I mean, I can only imagine it's how much rent is in California. I mean, because even here in Chicago, like most people, what they pay for rent, they can definitely be paying in a mortgage.
Oh,
Hands down.
Hands down, absolutely. And that's our biggest message. That is our biggest message as advocates. It's very important that we know we have financial literacy in play where people can understand what the steps are for purchasing your first home. It's really not as difficult as what we think it is. Oh, I got to get my credit ready. If my credit's not right. Oh, I got to get my bank statements. Oh, I've got to do my taxes. As soon as you start to do it, it will all fall into play. When you're passionate about buying a home and you don't want to rent anymore and you want to own, trust me, there are lots of resources out there for folks to buy. And I think that's very important because, literally you can buy, as I started this conversation, maybe in the outskirts. I'd rather be in the outskirts and own than to be in the city and paying someone's rent. That's me. That's me.
Come on.
So I think it's very important that we take the first steps, that we contact our mortgage professionals, we contact our realtor professionals, and we start to engage in the conversation for those who don't own. What do I need to do to set myself up to purchase? And if it's not in the next few months, how about in the next year or two? Because you and I know how fast that time goes by, and you'll be done spent $50,000-$60,000 on someone else's rent. Wow, let's change that. Let's change that.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a lady literally maybe 3 nights ago, and she's 24 and she's looking for a mentor. But she wants to eventually get into real estate. She wants to own property, and she's making like $4,000 a month. Which I told her, I was like, you're single, no kids. Okay, you're doing okay. You're doing okay for a single young lady who's living at home, not paying rent. She was actually just saying that she's getting ready to move out, go get an apartment, and she had $1,200 in her savings account.
Now, see.
And so I'm sure you probably know how my conversation went with her.
Yes.
And I think by the time, and you know what, I was running to an appointment, so I had to get off the phone, and I haven't followed up with her yet. But I am absolutely 100% sure that she probably is not going to move out. She's going to stay at home and continue to live for free, and going to aggressively start saving $2,000 a month because her bills were only $1,500. And I said, I don't know you. This is my first time talking to you. You make $4,000 a month. Your bills are $1,500. You can take $500 for yourself. I don't know you, but that should be more than enough to get your head done, nails done, go out to eat, whatever. Right? And I was like, there's no reason why you should not be aggressively saving $2,000 a month. And so you are absolutely right. It's about having that conversation. When you are telling somebody, I want to be a homeowner in the next 6 months or the next 12 months. Well, are you making that a reality? Like what steps are you putting in place now in order for you to get that and secure that? So you're absolutely right. So if you guys took nothing else away from this call, before you start talking about investing in real estate, own your own home. Absolutely. The one last thing that I want to touch on before you go, so thank you so much for being here and just sharing all of your information and your expertise in regards to everything that you're doing in your community and providing opportunities for homeowners. So we talked about, the very first thing that people should do is own their own home. But what about the person that does own their own home and now they're ready to get into redeveloping neighborhoods and communities and that type of thing? What's some advice that you would give to someone that's just getting started?
For someone that is just getting started, again, I would encourage them to work with a real estate professional that they trust and that they know they're on their team and they have a clear vision and a clear goal, and the realtors will help them achieve that. And the reason that is important is because if you're just starting out and you're not actually a real estate professional, then it's awesome to have a professional working with you to tell you where those investments are, to help pencil them out for you. Again, someone else on your team that supports you in making a healthy decision, because investing is no joke. And you need to make sure you understand everything that you're getting into. So if you've already bought a home and now you want to buy a second home, then call that agent up that helped you get into that first home, if they took good care of you, and say, it's time for me to buy that second piece. And let me tell you, they are going to be very happy 99% of the time to service you and find you something incredible.
Yes, they definitely will. And look, I said that was the last question. I lied. So,
that's all right.
So is that how you find a lot of your deal? I mean, I know you said, your realtor partners have brought you deals. Is that the main way that you get deals? Because here, we do like a lot of off-market investing. Like wholesaling is huge here, with finding off-market great properties. Because here, our thing is, once it gets to the market, now, everybody's fighting over it.
Yeah, I think it depends, right? Because again, if you're not a real estate professional, if you are connected with other real estate professionals, then they have off-market deals, right? We have off-market deals, and we can tell our clients about it. And so for me, being a real estate professional, however, I look at tax sales. I'm looking at the auction. I have brought quite a few places from auction. And that it can be very difficult, but I have a team that works with me that makes sure the title is ran and everything is taken care of. And I pay a fee for that so that when I do make the decision to execute at the auction, pretty much all of the homework has been done for me. And there's a common thread about me that you'll find in this interview, and that is that I don't mind hiring professionals to help me be better at what it is that I want to do. So if I want to buy a property from auction, then I have a group of folks that I work with. They make sure that everything is scrubbed. The taxes are not, there aren't any hidden taxes and liens and various things that come up when you're purchasing from an auction. And then I put together my spreadsheet with my numbers and I pencil it out. I add in my 25%, 20 to 25% cushion. And I'll say to myself, is this going to work for me? And do I know this city and this area good enough to buy and execute at an auction today? And 90% of the time, the answer is yes, because I'm buying where I'm familiar with, where I grew up with, where I understand the essence of the neighborhood or the block or so that gives me an advantage for someone who was maybe bidding at an auction and they say, I don't want to touch that Richmond, but on, this street, no, thank you. But for me, I'm like, I'll take it because I understand it. And I know people buy that property. Maybe they won't buy it or their clients won't buy it, but I'll have the clients that will, and that would love that opportunity. And so for me, I like to execute, I like to purchase at the auction as well, because those are houses that typically otherwise would go to a bank if they're not purchased, and then they would be boarded up or, they stay empty for a while, which can create a problem. Or they'll go to another private investor who may not feel the same way I do about Richmond, may not feel the same way I do about San Pablo or Hercules or Oakland or Pinole. And so, again, it allows me to reinvest in my community. And sometimes that's, auction purchasing has been very tough. Some days are easier than others, but I've been doing it for quite a while.
I love that. So, a few great points there. One, get creative in your acquisition strategy. Two, you got to pay to play, right? Do not be cheap in hiring your team, right? Because it's going to cost you more money in the long run. Right. Whether that is an attorney, contractors, or the title company, right? So right. I think that's a great point. The realtor, right? The real estate professional that you bring on board. So that was also mentioned in another interviews that I did with another lady for this summit, like that your team is going to be so important. And, you know, a lot of newbies ask, well, how do you find a good team? Right? I get that question a lot. What would you say?
A newbies in the industry, you mean? Or to purchase?
Yeah, so a newbie that wants to invest in real estate, they want to know how do you find a good team?
Well, I would start with your first point of contact, right? So if you are new into investing and now you've reached out to your realtor or your realtist, and out here we have realtors for our African American brokers and agents. And so we refer to ourselves as realtors. So you hear me saying realtors and realtists, and I bounce in between because we refer to ourselves here at NARAB and the ARPB community in Oakland as realtists. And we're very proud of our long history, standing history with the organization. Again, one of the oldest Black brokerage organizations in the country. And I think it's very important that when you make that first point of contact and you're in that very first transaction with your realtor or your realtist, from there you are interacting with a multitude of people, right? You're interacting with your title company. You may meet your appraiser. As you go along the way and you have a vibe or a connection with someone in that transaction, you keep their name and you keep their information. And when it's time for your next go round, you utilize those same folks. You request those same folks. I have had the same title officer for years, and I've just recently opened up to changing 2 or 3. And I met her on one of my very first transactions. I liked how she took care of me. It was obvious that she knew what she was doing and that she knew more than me. And she still knows more than me to this day around title or making sure all my everything from my articles of incorporation and I'm taken care of. So again, as you interact in your first transaction, it's very important to get the feel for who is taking care of you. Who do you like working with? Who do you see has that spark and shine and you think they could be a part of your team because you think alike, or they're making sure that they're taking care of you. Take note of that and make sure not to forget those people and make sure to say thank you and to treat everyone that you interact with respect and with dignity. I think that's very important, and to let people know that are working with you how much you appreciate them from the very first transaction that you interact with. And you take that and you run with that. You build from there because you'll have another transaction. And from that other transaction, again, think about the people who you're interacting with. Watch, take notes, and work with those folks in the future. And before you know it, you will have a team. You will be able to, decipher, okay, this is who I want to work with. And you go from there. That would be my advice.
Right. Yeah, and these are the people, like you said earlier, who share my vision and who believe in my vision. So I think that's great. Just when it comes to, putting out a quality product, right? So working with contractors who are going to do good work, to respect you, right? And then the same thing when it comes to working with an attorney who is going to dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure everything is fair and on the up and up, but definitely, who knows their stuff, right? And same with the title company, the woman that you've been working with for years from your very first deal. And it's funny because that advice, I couldn't have said it better because that's exactly how I do my transactions. Once I work with you, you pretty much have, I would say probably one chance, maybe two, but, to just show, as far as the other professionals that I work with to, just show, especially if I'm referring somebody to you, how are you treating, this client, or how are you handling your business, right? What are you doing to make sure this deal gets done and closed? And you're absolutely right. Those people will stay with you, and those people, you can take with you. So I would love to, just leave on this note with, and we hear it all the time. It's so cliche, right? But begin with the end in mind. because if you are starting an investment company, where you're redeveloping communities and things like that, then that's something that you are doing obviously for the long haul. And starting with the end in mind, meaning, okay, what my professionals, making sure I vet them and their experience, and in regards to where I want to go. Maybe you want to rehab apartment buildings someday or whatever the case, so you want to find out those types of individuals who have experience doing those things. But yes, anything else you want to add, Helena? Because I don't want to take away from you, because you gave away so many golden nuggets on this interview.
I appreciate that. No, I would just say that, a couple of cliches we hear all the time is believe in yourself. And that is so important. You really, it starts with you and your vision. And there are going to be times when you fall. I mean, it's just the nature of the business. And you have to be able to tell yourself, I'm going to get through this. I can get through this. I can move on from this. What is the lesson in it? And keep it moving, because in business, there are times when it just doesn't go the way that you wanted it to go. And so it's not how you fall, it's how you get up. And that is very true. And it definitely is true in investing, because you may think you have something perfect and it's just not. And now you need to add this and fix this. And, do you get down or do you stay up and keep it moving and tell yourself, I got this? You're constantly telling yourself that you got this. Which again, I'll leave it with, that's why it's important to have a team around you, masterminds that say, you do have this. And on top of that, I got you too. That's where it's at. Right. That's everything. And then go home and make sure you spend quality time with the people that matter to you, and that they're supportive of you as well. That support team is everything. It truly does take a village.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much for just being a part of this, and, just sharing your story with other women. Like I mentioned at the beginning, Flippin' and Heels was created because, when I first started my journey, I looked around and I saw the gurus, and they definitely didn't look like me. They talked about no money, no credit investing, and all of these different ways and strategies and all of this mumbo jumbo stuff, right? And it made it very difficult to get in or even understand it, right? It was so complicated. But now, thanks to social media and technology and what we have today, not only am I able to connect with other Black real estate investors, but particularly women who are really showing up and really doing this and really making a statement and saying, yes, this can be done. I've done it. You can do it too. Don't be afraid. These are the things that you're going to have to go through, but if I can help you avoid some of the mistakes that I made, then, your journey would be better off than mine. And that's really, what the summit is about, to really empower women. It's a male-dominated industry. So, I really want to show that women can definitely be decision makers without swinging a hammer, too. All of these shows, like, you got to be swinging a hammer. Like, nah, you don't have to have that skill.
No, you don't. I mean, I can run one of these projects like I do my household, and that's the truth. You really can, but you have to get your people on board with you to help you, get it done. So I definitely think that it's not as difficult as what it seems. We just have to get through the hurdles in our mind and work with good people who can help us to create our vision.
Absolutely. And how many, look, I know I'm going. We're about to wrap up. How many projects do you usually have going at a time?
Wow. Well, for a long time, it was at least 3 to 5. And now it is, at a time. And, now 1 at a time is much better. It's much better. And I've learned that over the last few years that is very important to not do so many. And the reason that is important is because they need to be, you do need to watch over them. You need to watch your numbers. You need to go back. You need to check. And it's hard to find 2 and 3 great teams. I mean, it's taken me a long time, and I have a really great team, and they're best utilized on one project at a time, and because I can maximize that project. When you have multiple projects, sometimes you lose because you're spread too thin. And if you have the manpower and you have a big company, to do that, for me, I'm a woman-owned business. I'm 100% ownership of my company. And so, I like to keep it in a way that's manageable for me. And I'm finding now that my quality is everything versus quantity. And it wasn't that the quality of my work wasn't good on all my rehabs. It was. Unfortunately, the quality of how much I wanted to get back in my pocket may not have been as good as what it would be, or as what it is now, doing projects one at a time, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely,
one at a time.
absolutely.
Yeah, one at a time.
Okay.
And one at a time means like one a quarter. You can do one every 3 months. I mean, that's easy. But to do 2 and 3 at a time simultaneously, I mean,
especially
for me,
as a newbie.
Yeah, especially as a newbie. Exactly. Especially as a newbie. Or if you are seasoned and you decide you want to focus in on other areas in your life as well. I mean, I have clients now that I'm servicing, and I'm very much enjoying that side of it as well, and helping them to prepare their properties and get them ready. So I have a client-driven focus now versus, just redevelopment. So it's allowing me to play in both worlds, and still have it be manageable so that I can still do the things that matter the most, right? Which is playing with my kids, my dogs, and taking care of my husband and my family, my parents.
Yes, I love it. Okay, and on that note, I'm going to finally let you go. But, it was just so good. It was just so good, everything you were saying. I'm thinking like, oh, I want to know this, I want to know that. I'm sure the people want to know. So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Where can people find you? I don't know if you're really on social media, or if you want to share your email, or, just if people have questions, or maybe someone in your area, that wants to connect with you, or maybe they got a deal.
Oh, absolutely. I'm on Instagram, HMJ Cali, Instagram, and I am also on Facebook, Helena Jones Kim. And my email address is helenajoneskim@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me, ask any questions. I'm here to support, to connect. I think that's very important. So I love engaging with others. I love supporting business, the growth of business. And, anytime you are helping and supporting others, it's just a blessing that I receive that back in my own. So I look forward to connecting with many of your listeners, and if I can help in any kind of way, it will be my pleasure. Thank you for having me. This has really been a wonderful experience today.
Thank you. Well, all righty, ma'am. Well, I hope you guys learned a lot of lessons, took a lot of notes, and on that note, we will talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.